Sell Cashier gives you the best quotes for your iPhone, so check them out next time when you're planning to sell your old phone. Please introduce yourself and tell us more about this MOC.
Okay, hello, I'm Jim Beute. This is my take on the Royal Navy's Flower Class Corvette. Flower Class were a convoy escort in the Battle of the Atlantic in World War II. As such, they were probably the smallest, weakest warships that were ever made. They were a commercial whaler design that the Royal Navy put a tiny little 4-inch pop gun on the forecastle, and they put some depth charges on the back. And that was the ship that they needed in large numbers to defend the convoys against the German U-boats. They did a pretty good job. There were about 300 of them made. They were the Flower Class, so they all had fierce-sounding names like HMS Daffodil and HMS Petunia, and you name a flower, and there was probably a ship like this named after it. But they sunk about 40-some U-boats during the war, and we lost about 35 of them doing it. So they fought a hard fight, and they did a good job protecting the convoys. That's the history.
What's the building process behind this MOC? Like, so the ship and all this water right here.
Yep. So the ship itself, it bends up on the front and the back. So there's a building technique where you kind of bend the tiles uppy downy like this. So the ship, I can actually bend it vertically so the front and back go up and down. And then on the front and back, I need to bend it inward to make the curvature of the hull, the bows and the stern. So there's a whole lot of brick bending going on as far as the technique goes. And there's Technic platforms underneath it to hold on to and discipline where those tiles go with that brick bending. Because of all this brick bending, my water line looks terrible. So it looks good and straight and flat here, but in the front and in the back, it really looks bad. So I built the water around it to hide that ugly water line. And it also makes it look nice as a MOC. You've got a tiny ship in a big angry ocean. The water is it's a kind of an undulating. It's got a thin layer of dark blue on top, and then underneath it, it's a big old rainbow build just to keep things at the right height to make it look like that. And then I fill in the gaps with just white spray and the foam to show kind of what the wake of the ship would do to hide the seam between the ship and the water that I built up.
I see. I see many different minifigures. Can you tell us where you sourced them?
Where I sourced them. So I don't have a lot of flesh-colored minifigures, and we did this. This is a big collaborative. My friend Magnus did the lifeboat, and my friend Ralph did the U-boat over there. And the agreement was we would use flesh-tone minifigures, and I didn't have many of them. So to be honest, most of this crew are either Harry Potters or the Beatles from their Yellow Submarine. So yes, I've got British Beatles driving my British warship around here.
Nice. I see lots of different cannons over here, more like that's anti-aircraft maybe. But how is the build process, and are there any playable features in here?
Not much for playable. It's turnable. So in the front, again, they just put this tiny little 4-inch gun on the front, and there's a turntable in there. You can turn it, but it's a little bit fragile, so there's nothing much to it. Other armament down the sides, they had these mortars that would throw depth charges over the sides to prosecute a submarine in the water. They're just sitting there. They're not very playable. There's an anti-aircraft gun. Again, the Luftwaffe was a problem as much as the submarines, and you can turn it a little bit, but it's not very playable. Sorry, it's more of a static MOC. They had these little cranes and paravanes. They were minesweepers because the U-boats wouldn't always just torpedo you; they'd leave mines behind. So these little convoy escorts had to go sweep a clear channel to get rid of the mines. And then there's more depth charges in the little racks that they'd roll off the back in the wake to try to prosecute the submarines. So lots of different weapons, and I'm sorry, it's not a very playable MOC. It was a very quick build, so it's a good static MOC.
I see. Thank you very much for your time, and hopefully we will see you next Brick Fair.
Thank you, Victor. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.